Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. So, you've seen the title, Chemistry Doesn't Mean Compatibility. And I want to start this the right way because people hear that sentence and they immediately swing to an extreme. Here's the thing. I am not saying chemistry doesn't matter. Chemistry matters. Attraction matters. The vibe matters. That part is real. That part is necessary. That part is the magic. If you're trying to build a long-term relationship with someone you're not attracted to, someone you don't feel pulled towards, someone you don't want to touch, someone you don't desire, you're not building romance. You're building a partnership on paper. And then you wake up months later wondering why you feel disconnected, why intimacy feels forced, why your heart isn't in it. So yes, chemistry is important. What I'm saying is that chemistry is not what you should be basing your relationship on. Chemistry provides magic. Compatibility provides stability. And a lot of people are taking that magic and trying to live inside it like it's the structure. That's where things go wrong. Chemistry is one of the most convincing sensations in dating. It doesn't just feel good. It feels meaningful. It feels like your body is telling you the truth before your brain even catches up. And because it feels meaningful, people treat it like evidence. They treat it like proof that the person is right for them. They treat it like a sign that the relationship will work. They treat it like the universe is finally giving them what they deserve. And we know how I feel about that. But chemistry doesn't prove character. It doesn't prove emotional maturity. It doesn't prove accountability. It doesn't prove that someone is safe. Chemistry doesn't prove that you can build with you. Or that someone can build with you, not that you can build with you. Chemistry only proves one thing. You're stimulated. And stimulation can come from something healthy, or something destructive, or something familiar, or something you're addicted to repeating. So if you don't understand what chemistry is actually doing inside you, it's going to keep making decisions for you. And then you'll end up confused. Let's make one distinction that clears up a lot of this. Chemistry is not the same thing as connection. Connection is mutual understanding that grows. Chemistry is a pull. Now, sometimes those things overlap and sometimes they don't. And the reason they don't is because chemistry can be created by things that have nothing to do with a long-term match. A lot of people call it chemistry when what they're really feeling is novelty, validation, tension, familiarity, scarcity, a chase, your nervous system waking up for reasons that have nothing to do whether a life can be built here. I'm not trying to turn this into a clinical lecture. I'm trying to make you more accurate. Because the mistake people keep making is treating a strong pull as proof that a relationship makes sense. And those are two different things. Let me start with something simple. I've seen 1,000 times. People will say to me, Joe, we had insane chemistry. And I'll say, oh, that's fantastic. Like, I'm happy for you. What else? And the truth is, for a lot of people, there is no else. There's chemistry. And then there's a blank space where compatibility should be. And they try to fill that blank space with hope. That's the trap. They try to use chemistry to justify staying long enough for compatibility to magically appear. Now, compatibility doesn't magically appear. Compatibility is either there or it isn't. It reveals itself with time, consistency, and behavior. Now, here's how this actually plays out in real life. And I want you to notice how subtle it can be, because most people think they're going to spot the problem only if it's dramatic. That's not how it usually happens. She meets him somewhere normal, not on an app, not some intense dating setup. It's a social environment, a wedding, a party, a friends gathering, the kind of place where you're just present. They talk, it's easy, there's no awkwardness, it's playful, he's smooth in a way that doesn't feel corny, he can hold eye contact, he can make her laugh, the conversation just moves. Then there's a moment, not even some big romantic thing, just a moment where she feels that pull, that quiet, oh, in the body, that feeling of, I want to be close to you. And she leaves thinking, okay, finally. Now listen, that's not nothing. That does matter. And I'm not dismissing that. But that moment is not where a foundation gets built. That moment is just a spark. So they start seeing each other. The early dates are great because, of course, they are. When chemistry is strong, the early stages feel effortless. It feels like the energy is carrying itself. It feels like you don't have to push. Then slowly, that blank space shows up. Not with some obvious red flag that your friends can point at. Not with a, he cheated or he screamed at me or anything that clean. It shows up as vagueness. Plans don't really get locked in until she pushes. Conversations don't deepen unless she pulls them there. He's amazing when they're together and inconsistent when they're apart. He can create a night, but he can't create reliability. And this is where people make the mistake. Instead of treating that as information, they treat it as a phase. They call inconsistency busy. They call avoidance taking it slow. They call vagueness not rushing. And sometimes those things are true for a short period. But here's what people don't understand. Taking it slow still has direction. Busy still has follow through. A person can have a full life and still show you that you matter without you having to force it. So when the pattern stays vague, the question isn't, is he busy? The question is there actually compatibility here? Because compatibility isn't a vibe. It's how someone lives across time, not how they make you feel during a great night. And if they aren't showing up, you don't fix that by hoping harder. Now, I'm going to say this as cleanly as possible because this is where people lose the most time. If you feel chemistry and you notice that blank space where compatibility should be, you have two choices. You can slow down and gather information, or you can speed up and start bargaining. Now, at least from what I see, most people, they speed up. They speed up emotionally. They start attaching. They start investing. They start making room in their life for something that hasn't earned that room yet. And they do that because chemistry creates pressure. It creates that feeling of, this is rare. And when something feels rare, you start acting like you can't afford to lose it. So you start trying to lock it in. But compatibility doesn't show up because you locked something in. Compatibility will show up if it's real. And here's one of the biggest traps in modern dating, and I see it consistently. Chemistry is there, and then there's a blank space where compatibility should be. And instead of treating that blank space like information, people try to fill it with hope. They meet someone and the spark is strong, the vibe is strong, the attraction is real, and they tell themselves the rest will develop. That the rest will show up later. That once you spend enough time together, compatibility will magically appear. Guess what? It doesn't. Compatibility doesn't appear because you waited long enough. Compatibility is either there or it isn't. It reveals itself. It doesn't get invented. But what people do is they use chemistry to justify staying in the evaluation stage for way too long. They keep telling themselves, I just need a little bit more time to figure it out. And what happens while you're figuring it out? you invest. You invest time, you invest energy, you invest emotion, you invest your body. You start prioritizing them, you start making space for them, you start adjusting your life around the relationship. And here's the thing, now you're attached. Now the cost of leaving doesn't feel like leaving a person. It feels like you're throwing away everything you already put into it. And that's where people get stuck. Because now they're not staying because it makes sense. They're staying because it feels like they should. They're staying because they feel obligated to see it through. Like quitting would make all that time mean nothing. That's the sunk cost fallacy. That's your brain saying, I've already paid so much, I can't just walk away now. When the truth is, the money is gone either way. The time is gone either way. The only question is whether you keep paying. And here's the brutal part. While you're staying for potential, chemistry starts to fade. Because chemistry isn't meant to carry the relationship alone. It's meant to sit on top of something stable. So when there's no compatibility underneath, no structure, no alignment, no consistency, no emotional maturity, the spark starts turning into effort. The vibe starts turning into confusion. The attraction starts turning into anxiety. And instead of letting that be a sign, people panic. They try to revive the chemistry like it's the heartbeat of the relationship. More dates, more texts, more sex, more intensity, more let's do something fun. They try to create moments to compensate for the missing foundation. And that's how people waste a ridiculous amount of time. Because now they're not just hoping compatibility will appear. They're trying to save something that never had the structure to last. So the point of this episode is not chemistry is bad. The point is chemistry can't fill a blank space that compatibility was supposed to occupy. And hope can't either. Now, let's make this even more real. Because the sunk cost fallacy is one of those phrases people hear and they think it's some academic concept. It's not. It's everyday dating. So there's this woman. She meets this guy through a mutual circle, not online, not some forced setup, just real life. And the chemistry is immediate. Not he's cute. It's that full body pull where you can feel yourself getting a little stupid. He's confident, quick, socially smooth. He has that intensity that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room, even when you're not. They go out. The night feels electric. They talk for hours. The eye contact is heavy. The vibe is the kind that makes you drive home, replaying parts of the conversation like they really meant something. And this is where chemistry becomes dangerous, because when it's that strong, it doesn't just make you like someone. It makes you start assigning meaning to everything. So she keeps seeing him naturally. And the beginning is amazing. Of course it is. The beginning is always amazing when the chemistry is doing the heavy lifting. The real person starts showing up though. He drinks a lot. His mood can flip, not passionate, a temper. The kind where you can feel the atmosphere change. He talks about his ex like she ruined his life, like he's still living in that resentment. And he's unpredictable. One day, he's all in, obsessed, affectionate. The next day, he's distant, cold. And she's trying to figure out what she did wrong, even though she didn't do anything. Now watch what happens when chemistry is strong. She starts editing the truth. She calls the drinking stress. She calls the temper, he's been through a lot. She calls the unpredictability, he's scared to get close. She tells herself that deep down, he's a good guy. He just needs someone who understands him. And this is where she comes to me, because she can feel the conflict. The chemistry is insane, but something doesn't feel right. So I ask her a question that cuts right through the fantasy. How do you feel after you see him? Not during the date, not in the moment when it's exciting, after, when you're alone again. And she pauses and she goes, honestly, anxious. And that's the part people don't want to say out loud, because a lot of people don't call anxiety anxiety. They call it chemistry. They call it passion. They call it intensity. They call it, I'm obsessed. But what she was describing wasn't love. It was nervous system activation. It was her body bracing for inconsistency. So I let her sit with that for a second. And then I ask her a second question. A question that ends the whole debate. If the chemistry wasn't there, would you still date him? And she laughs nervously, not because it's funny, because the answer hits so fast, it's almost embarrassing. No. And that's the moment the fog lifts, because now we're not talking about romance. We're talking about reality. If you remove the spark and you're left with a person who drinks too much, who can't regulate, who carries resentment, who creates instability, who makes you anxious, you're not looking at a foundation. You're looking at a dumpster fire. And that's what chemistry can do when it's not paired with compatibility. It turns obvious no into maybe, long enough for you to get to it and get attached. She stays longer than she should have because most people do. And it ended the way these things end. A blow up, a chaotic moment where the charm doesn't cover it anymore. And the relationship finally tells the truth out loud. But the important part is that she already knew. She didn't lack information. She lacked permission to accept it. And that's why I keep saying chemistry cannot be the foundation. Because if the spark is the only reason you're still there, you're not building a relationship. You're feeding an addiction to a feeling. Now, the moment you hear all that, some people will go, okay, so the answer is simple. Just pick the stable person. Yeah, absolutely. Do that. But to be honest with you, that's not what I'm saying either. Chemistry is necessary. But we have to understand that it's not the foundation. Let me ask you something. Would you rather be with someone you're insanely attracted to, magnetic chemistry, incredible sex, the vibe is perfect, but they're unstable? They lie, they punish you emotionally. They play games with your nervous system. They make you feel small, then act charming, so you second guess whether it counts. Or would you rather be with someone stable, kind, emotionally consistent, respectful, and real? Someone you can actually build a life with. Now, most people hear that and they already know the healthy answer. And then they immediately say the same thing. But Joey, I want both. And I'm like, good. You should want both. That's not the issue. The issue is the order you put them in. Because when you put chemistry first, it becomes the filter you use to excuse everything else. You start treating the foundation like it's negotiable. You start trying to work through things that were never supposed to be worked through. You start making room for instability because the spark is loud. And I need you to understand this. Foundation is black and white. It's yes or no. If someone lies, that's not a personality quirk. If someone punishes you emotionally, that's not their love language. If someone is unstable, inconsistent, reactive, disrespectful, those aren't little speed bumps. That's the road. And you don't build on that. Chemistry is different. Chemistry is important, but it's also the thing that will make you negotiate with yourself. It's the thing that makes you say, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. It's the thing that makes you call a pattern a phase. It's the thing that makes you try to manage chaos because you don't want to lose the feeling. That's why chemistry is dangerous when it's running the decision. So yes, want both. You're supposed to want both. But build it in the right order. Foundation comes first every time, because foundation is what decides whether the relationship is viable. Chemistry is what decides whether it's going to be romantic. And when you reverse that, you don't get passion. You get attachment to a feeling and a slow tolerance from what you would have walked away from if you weren't attracted. Now, obviously, you can't control which actually happens first, but you can be self-aware to remember that foundation should be the first thing on your mind. And if by any chance you meet someone in person and there's an incredible spark, that you step away for a moment and come to an understanding of what you're feeling and what you should be focusing on. Now, another truth people avoid: sometimes the chemistry is real, the person is good, and it still doesn't work, because compatibility isn't just a good person. Compatibility is fit, direction, life design. So, he's with her. They're physically obsessed. The banter is effortless. The sex is incredible. They can talk for hours. It feels like a movie. Then real life shows up. Kids, where to live, lifestyle, money, family boundaries. And it becomes obvious they're building two different futures. Not in a we can compromise kind of way. In a we're going in different directions way. Chemistry makes it tempting to treat direction like a detail. But direction isn't a detail. Direction is the relationship. You can have a lot of fun with someone you're not compatible with. You just can't build a future with them. And chemistry makes you try anyway. That's why people end up saying, but we're so good together, while slowly becoming miserable, because good together in the moment isn't the same thing as good together long term. So, what is compatibility? Because I don't want you to hear compatibility and think it means we like the same hobbies. Compatibility is whether your lives fit and whether the relationship is emotionally viable. It's whether values align enough that you're not negotiating your future every month. It's whether conflict leads to repair or punishment. It's whether honesty is safe. It's whether you can be human without paying for it. It's whether the relationship becomes easier to live inside over time, not harder. Compatibility shows up when the relationship isn't romantic. Anyone can be great when it's easy. What matters is what happens when it isn't. So when you feel chemistry, stop asking, is this special? And start asking, does this make sense? Special is a feeling, sense is a filter. And this is where your blueprint method becomes the anchor. The blueprint exists to protect you from chemistry confusion. Chemistry makes people negotiate with themselves. The blueprint makes you remember what matters. It forces you to decide what's actually non-negotiable before you're emotionally involved, before your brain becomes a lawyer defending the feeling. That's the whole point. And the part people don't expect is that a real blueprint usually makes your dating life broader, not narrower. Most people have a type built out of preference. Their preferences become policies. They filter out good people for stupid reasons. And then they meet someone with spark, and suddenly those policies disappear. That's mood-based selection. So how do you use chemistry correctly? You treat it like an entry ticket. If there's no chemistry at all, you don't force it. You can't negotiate desire. But if chemistry is there, you don't crown it as destiny on date one. You enjoy it, but at the same time, you gather information. Information doesn't mean interrogating someone like a detective. It means you stop letting the spark drown out what's obvious. By the third or fourth time you see someone, life usually gives you a moment that matters. A scheduling conflict, a misunderstanding, a boundary, a small disappointment, a difference in opinion maybe. Those moments show you whether the person can handle friction without punishment. They show you whether accountability exists. They show you whether honesty is safe. They show you whether they can show up consistently when it costs a little effort or when everything is easy. And if weeks go by and you still don't know where you stand, that's information too. Fog is not neutral. Fog benefits someone. A person capable of a serious relationship doesn't keep you in fog indefinitely. Clarity doesn't require dramatic speech, but it also doesn't require months of guessing. So when you catch yourself saying, I just need more time, how about you ask a better question? More time for what? More time for them to become consistent? More time for them to be ready? More time for them to decide they want what you want? That's not information gathering. That's hope. And hope is exactly how people get trapped in the blank space. Now, chemistry fading. Chemistry fades in every relationship. That's normal. The beginning isn't meant to last forever. If it did, you wouldn't sleep, you wouldn't think, you wouldn't function. You'd be permanently intoxicated. So the question isn't whether chemistry fades. It will. The question is what happens when it does. In a healthy relationship, intensity softens, but the bond strengthens. Attraction becomes less frantic and more rooted. You stop needing constant proof. In an unhealthy relationship, when chemistry fades, panic sets in because there's nothing underneath it. The relationship was built on the high, so people start chasing the first month like it was the real relationship. They escalate. They manufacture excitement. They confuse adrenaline with love. That's how you get cycles. It feels like something is happening, but nothing is being built. Compatibility breaks that cycle because compatibility creates a relationship that doesn't require constant adrenaline to feel alive. And here is a harsh truth that saves time. If you have to keep convincing yourself, you already have your answer. Real relationships can be hard. Life is hard. People are imperfect. But the relationship itself shouldn't feel like a consistent debate in your head. When the relationship itself feels like the problem, chemistry is usually disguising a mismatch. A lot of people think the mature move is to stay vague because they don't want to pressure anything. Clarity isn't pressure. Clarity is reality spoken out loud. If you feel chemistry and you keep noticing that blank space where compatibility should be, you don't need months to diagnose it. Slow your pace if you want, but don't extend the fog. Bring one honest conversation into the room. Not an ultimatum, not a speech, just truth. If they can meet truth with truth, you have something to work with. If they meet truth with avoidance, jokes, or vagueness, that's also information. It's just not the information you want. So, what is the whole point of this episode? Essentially, you don't need to kill chemistry. You just need to stop worshiping it. Because the old way of dating trained us to put chemistry first. You meet someone out in a bar, out in public, at a party, and you don't have much information. You're not sitting there interviewing them. You're going off how it feels, the vibe, the pull, the energy. And that made sense because chemistry was basically the only data you had in the moment. The problem is we carry that exact habit into online dating. And online dating gives you something we didn't really have before. The opportunity to find out whether there's a foundation to build on before chemistry even enters the conversation. You can see how someone communicates. You can see what they want. You can see whether your lives line up in the ways that actually matter. You can find out if there's alignment before you let a spark start negotiating on your behalf. And here's the thing, even if you meet someone the old-fashioned way, the solution isn't to pretend chemistry doesn't exist. The solution is to stay self-aware. Take a step back and ask yourself, what am I feeling? And why am I feeling it? Is this a real foundation sowing itself? Or is this just excitement? Chemistry is supposed to be the spark on top of something that can actually hold weight. When it's not, you end up trying to build a life on a feeling, and you'll spend months negotiating with yourself because you don't want to let that feeling go. Use one honest conversation to bring reality into the room. Then watch what happens. Not what they promise, what they do. That's how compatibility will reveal itself. And once you see it clearly, stop pretending time will turn it into something else. Time doesn't create structure, it exposes what's already there. That's all I have to say about that for the time being. If you want help applying this to your own situation, dating coaching, relationship coaching, whatever it is, you know where you can find me at. It's joeyfrancis.com. That's JoeyFrances.com, actually. And for those who don't know, you can follow me on Instagram at JoeyFrances. I post shorts there and some other information things, quotes that are from my books. So maybe that can also help you. And speaking of my books, you can find my books there if by any chance you wanted to go deeper into this stuff on your own time. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I appreciate you more than you can ever know. And I would love to hear from you. And before I leave, I will leave you with something simple and true. And honestly, I love this line. Chemistry is the spark. Compatibility is the structure. Build your life on sparks, and you'll burn the house down. Till next time.